Good morning and welcome to Scarborough Salvation Army online worship. We're delighted that you are with us again today. Well, I guess over the past weeks we've been really blessed to go around Scarborough and see some of the different sites. However, today as we have filmed, the rain is pouring outside and so we find ourselves here in the Citadel again to do our filming. This morning we start with an air of praise and the psalmist helps us in our worship. Psalm 95 says, "Come, let us sing for joy to the Lord. Let us shout aloud to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before him with thanksgiving and extol him with music and song. For the Lord is the great God, the great King above all gods. In his hand are the depths of the earth, and the mountain peaks belong to him. The sea is his, for he made it, and his hands formed the dry land. Come, let us bow down in worship. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture, the flock of his care." Perhaps now you'd like to join us as we begin to sing together in worship.
One of the really lovely things about prayer is that it's not defined by our age or our ability. We can all come before God in prayer, from the youngest to the oldest. And this morning, a young child is going to lead us in prayer as they lead us in the Lord's Prayer, following which we're going to sing a song which reminds us about God's provision. And that song is "Blessed Be Your Name."
Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in us as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Blessed be your name in the land that is plentiful, where your streams of abundance flow. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name when I'm found in the desert place. Though I walk through the wilderness, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. When the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Blessed be your name when the sun's shining down on me, when the world's all as it should be. Blessed be your name. Blessed be your name on the road marked with suffering. Though there's pain in the offering, blessed be your name. Every blessing you pour out, I'll turn back to praise. And when the darkness closes in, Lord, still I will say, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. Oh, blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your name. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Blessed be your glorious name. blessed be your name.
It's been so lovely seeing so many members of our church family take part helping to lead worship over these last few months. I don't know about you, but I'm delighted in seeing different people. And this morning, I'm really pleased that Catherine Brown is going to bring our scripture reading to us just now. And it comes from Hebrews chapter 12.
Good morning, I'm Catherine Brown. The reading this morning is from Hebrews chapter 12, 1 to 13. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith. For the joy set before him he endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinners, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. God disciplines his children. In your struggle against sin, you have not yet resisted to the point of shedding your blood. And have you completely forgotten this word of encouragement that addresses you as far as a father addresses his son? It says, "My son, do not make light of the Lord's discipline, and do not lose heart when he rebukes you, because the Lord disciplines the one he loves, and he chastens everyone he accepts as his son." Endure hardship as discipline. God is treating you as his children, for what children are not disciplined by their father? If you are not disciplined, and everyone undergoes discipline, then you are not legitimate, not true sons and daughters at all. Moreover, we have all had human fathers who disciplined us, and we were respected them for it. How much more should we submit to the Father of spirits and live? They disciplined us for a little while as they thought best. But God disciplines us for good, in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. Therefore, strengthen your feeble arms and weak knees. Make level paths for your feet, so that the lame may not be disabled, but rather healed.
Our Father everlasting, the all-creating one, God Almighty. Through your Holy Spirit, conceiving Christ the Son, Jesus the Savior. I believe in God our Father, I believe in Christ the Son, I believe in the Holy Spirit, our God is three in one. I believe in the resurrection, that we will rise again, for I believe in the name of Jesus.
Well, this morning we come to our time again where we share in the blessings of our fellowship over the past weeks. I'm delighted to introduce Chris Pitts, who's going to share some of the blessings that she has encountered in her home setting. Then following that, we're going to sing a new song, The Lion and the Lamb.
Hi, I'm Chris Pitts. You'll know me from the Salvation Army. Major Steve asked us to come on video today and just talk a little bit about our blessings through lockdown. Mike and I, we spend a lot of time together normally, but over the last 3 months we've spent even more time together, and in all honesty it's made us appreciate each other more. We've done more things together, we've talked more, we've met more people in the village that we thought we'd never know because we've been going on long walks, which is a blessing, being able to do that. We spent time in the garden, had a few little bickers about it, and me with the spirit level, Mike with the shovel, and but we got over it and we laughed at the end of it, which was nice. I never thought I'd say it, but social media has been a blessing actually. And this is from someone who up until January didn't even know what a smartphone was. We've been on social media with the family up in the north, which was lovely. Without that we don't know what we'd have done. We've spoken to Mike's brother in Indonesia, which has been lovely, on video link, and it's just like being in the same room with them. So, as I say, I never thought I'd hear myself say that, but it does. It's absolutely marvellous. There's still things I don't know about it, but we're learning every day. It's just been, I don't know, on a Thursday night when we've gone out to clap, it's been so nice to hear everybody in the village clapping, and there's been pans banging, hasn't there, Mike, and even cars hooting. And you come in and you get a really warm feeling, and it's nice to think that not only the village and the town but the whole country's come together as a whole, and I think in the main it's brought out the best in people, and we certainly see people in a different light, and it makes you appreciate what you've got. We've seen pictures on the television of this horrible disease and spread in Africa and these other countries, and you take for granted that you've got water coming through a tap, and these poor people have got on a stand that hundreds of people are sharing, probably thousands. So really we're very grateful for what we've got. The garden's been a haven of tranquility when we haven't been working crazily in it. Mike's always been keen on the garden, but I've been lending a hand, haven't I? And we've sort of grown our own things. We've got peas, we've got radishes, we've got gooseberries, we've got apples, and it's just so nice to see them all grow. We've had birds nesting in the little bird box for the first time in 2 years since we put it up, and we've been able to watch little blue tits fledge, and the little mother and father going in and feeding them every day, and it's been a pleasure to see. And one day we sat and we counted the number of different birds that had been in the garden, and it was just so nice to see. And not only that, when it first started in March, everything was so small, the buds on the trees and the flowers, and we've just seen them grow and bloom. And likewise on our walk, we went out in the bushes, there were no leaves on there, and the corn in the field where we go around, it was just like this, and then it suddenly burst into colour, and it's just been a pleasure really. And I think there's some of the blessings that we've had, being able to notice things more and appreciate what we've got really, together with friends and family of course, and that to me says a lot about it all really. But I will be glad to get back and see our Salvation Army family as well, because obviously you mean a lot to us as well. And we've never felt on our own, have we?
No.
Because we've had phone calls and we've been in touch with people, and really we can't really complain about anything. We're just blessed that we've got each other really, and everybody around us.
coming on the clouds. Kings and kingdoms will bow down, and every chain will break as broken hearts declare his praise. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains. Every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him. So open up the gate, make way before the King of Kings. Our God who comes to save is here to set the captives free. For who can stop the Lord Almighty? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains. Every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him. Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord Almighty? Who can stop the Lord? Our God is the Lion of Judah. He's roaring with power and fighting our battles. Every knee will bow before him. Our God is the Lamb that was slain for the sins of the world. His blood breaks the chains. Every knee will bow before the Lion and the Lamb. Oh, every knee will bow before him.
Well, I guess if you are a football fan, the last couple of weeks would have helped your withdrawal symptoms as football on our television has once again started, and particularly for those Liverpool fans, they will have been celebrating this last week. However, for many other sports fans, still we await the opportunity for sport to start again. If you are a fan of the Olympics, sadly it's going to be another year, as the Olympics have been postponed from July this year until July 2021. Of course, originally in ancient Greece, it was only men who were allowed to compete in the Olympics, and even then only after they could demonstrate that they were prepared to adhere to a very strict training regime and also a very strict dietary plan. Spectators were also only allowed to be male. Actually, that was with a very good reason, and that reason was that all the competitors were enforced to compete totally naked, so they would run a race naked. Very interesting that Hebrews uses the expression strip off every weight that would hinder. Of course, if you were competing naked, then quite literally you would have to strip off every weight that would hinder your race set before you. Perhaps it's very understandable then that the writer of Hebrews uses the analogy to compare the Christian experience of running a race, but also running a race before a huge crowd of witnesses. You find that in Hebrews 12:1. It's interesting that to me that the Greek word used for witnesses actually translates as martyr. What an incredible thought that as we run the race under the watchful eyes and encouragement, it's under the gaze of all those who have gone before us, those spiritual heroes, those heroes of the faith who have gone in the past. And so, as a spiritual athlete, I ask myself, what are the things that I need to shed that might hinder my progress? Hebrews 12 reminds us that still one of the biggest issues is to get rid of sin within my life. And that sometimes means giving up some of the corrupt desires which are hiding here within my heart. Martin Luther writes, "If we do not yield to God in faith, it is because we have the perpetual yearning to continue a life of sin." Wow, what a thought, that there are actually areas of sin within our lives that we enjoy and therefore are reluctant to surrender. I want to take you back all the way to the 4th century. One of the real early church fathers was Evagrius, and in the 4th century, Evagrius developed one of the earliest and perhaps best understandings of our spiritual journey. He was a man destined for high church office, yet fell foul of that when he sadly fell passionately in love with a married woman. It's not known whether he ever consummated that relationship. However, he was so distraught that he fled his home in Constantinople and eventually settled in Egypt. But it was there, amongst much soul searching, that he developed and identified the 8 deadly thoughts which have the potential to ruin our spiritual journey. He lists gluttony, anger, greed, envy, pride and lust, discouragement and depression. Maybe that reminds you of a song that we sang in the primary school. But he also, to counter those, lists 8 godly virtues which correspond and counter the challenge of those deadly thoughts. So this morning, I just want to spend some time just looking at those deadly thoughts and the impact on our life and the way that we counter them. The first one on that list is gluttony. Gluttony is that insatiable desire to satisfy our desires through gorging, and I guess not just through food. It may be perhaps found in the compulsive need to overwork on the means providing wealth or security, and it diminishes our confidence in God's ability to provide for us. However, the virtue of temperance allows us to develop our trust in the providence of a faithful God which will meet our needs. Anger. Well, anger is sometimes which I guess as Christians we don't always know how to handle, because we do occasionally get angry, it's fair to say. It arises when we feel that we have violated ourselves or others have violated us and we have lost control. Yet the virtue of mildness is a wonderful gift of self-control which allows God to satisfy our need for value and recognition. Third on that list comes greed. Sadly, greed often has no limit, and it obviously has a counter virtue, which is generosity. Instead of a boundless grasping for things, it allows us to have a life filled with the joy of generosity as we serve others. Then we come to perhaps one of the greatest killers in our life. I think in this world, one of our struggles is with the subject of envy. If you don't believe that, Just look at all of us who follow social media, checking out the holiday snaps, the lifestyle of friends, LinkedIn, so many areas where we can check social media just to see how everybody else is doing and make sure that we are living up to their lifestyle. Often that leads to a sinking depression if we didn't receive as many likes as our colleagues and friends. You know, a life of comparison will kill you every time. And that is perhaps why Evagrius encourages us to employ the gift of happiness. Happiness is so important. Happiness celebrates the gifts and abilities and successes of others. And in so doing, we enjoy God's blessing in our own life and we rejoice in the gifts that we too have received. We move on to pride. Pride is that temptation to puff our chest out and believe in our own self-importance. You know, it damages our heart, and we're often tempted to believe that we alone create our own success, and that diminishes our belief in the providence of God. Humility, however, counters pride by recognizing the gifts and the abilities again of others and understanding that each and every one of us are created by God and have an individual plan and purpose in Him. And so it is in humility we recognize all that God has given to us and offer that with thanksgiving. We come to a subject which we don't really like to discuss, and that's the thought of lust. Lust is a real challenge for all men and women. Alarmingly, lust can overrun each of us in a moment, and I believe chases after all those who desire a life of chastity. How often do we read of leaders whose lives have been ruined because of a moment of weakness? They have succumbed to that indiscretion. Chastity, however, works to properly balance love with the capacity to be loved, and will help in our fidelity to the promises that we have made to partners before God. The final deadly thought that I want to share with you this morning is one again which will affect each of us. Evagrius identifies melancholy or depression as a major killer in our spiritual development. It can come from a sense that we have no worth, we don't matter, that the priorities that we have structured in our life will make no difference after we have gone. It challenges in our confidence of the goodness within the world and of our place within it. And so it is that I want to encourage with the counter. The counter of depression is the gift of wisdom. You see, wisdom allows us to see our contribution in the world. That again we have an ordained, appointed purpose before God. And our purpose within His kingdom is that of a child of God. Our status that you and I is a child of God. And so this morning I can't really conclude without encouraging you and reminding you that God has all these things in hand and has a promise. We can encounter all the gifts and blessings that we need to prosper our lives in the world that we inhabit. I bring to you Galatians 5:22 to 23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And so this morning, I invite you to throw off everything that hinders your race, your progress in spiritual development, anything which would easily entangle us. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out before us. As we conclude, I invite you to listen to some words written many, many years ago by General Arch Wiggins, who writes, "If on my soul a trace of sin remaineth, if on my hands a stain of sin may yet be seen, If one dark spot a weary soul retaineth, O wash me, Lord, that every part be clean. For I would live that men might see thyself in me. I would in faith ascend thy holy hill, and with my thoughts in tune with thy divinity, would learn how best to do thy holy will.
Well, it's been really lovely to join together again in fellowship and in worship, because as we come together, it doesn't matter where we are, we're joining as one, and that's been really lovely this morning. And just now, I'd like to leave a benediction with you. The benediction comes from Ephesians chapter 3, verses 17 to 19. May Christ dwell in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may have strength to comprehend with all the saints what is the breadth, the length, the height and the depth, and to know the love of Christ that surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of God. God bless you this week, and amen.
So let us come before His throne.
So stand up and bless the Lord. He is worthy. He is worthy. He is the great and mighty one. He is worthy. He is worthy. Let me sing a verse. Our God is faithful from beginning to end. His love can't be mistaken. It can't be mistaken. He is our fortress and our hope. He defends. Yes, he cannot be shaken. No, 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 no. He has done great things for us. Yes, he has done great things. Let us come before his throne. Stand up and bless the Lord. He's worthy. He's worthy. He is the great and mighty one. He is worthy. He's worthy to be praised. In season and out of season, I will. Yeah, yes, sir. Come on, Roxy. Come on, people, listen up. So praise the Lord, hallelujah. 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 Give him glory. Just praise the Lord, hallelujah. Come on, yeah. He has done great things for us, yeah. He has done great things. He has done great things for us, yeah. He has done great things. He has done great things for us, yeah. He has done great things. So let us come before his throne. So stand up and bless the Lord. Let's go. He is worthy. He is worthy. He is the great and mighty one. He is worthy. He is worthy to be. Stand up and bless the Lord. He is worthy. He is worthy. He is the great and mighty one. He is worthy. He is worthy to be Worthy, worthy, he's a worthy God. Yes, he is. You ought to bless God because you recognize that he's worthy of all the praise in spite of what we go through on a daily basis. Yes, things are difficult. Yes, things at times are hard, but you be encouraged. Hang in there. The Bible says, take unto you the whole armor of God, that when difficult times come, you'll be able to stand up and bless him, stand up and praise him in spite of the way you feel. I got to get out of here. I got to go. Woo!